Hello, everyone. This is Thomas Pepin, NHL Talk. I'm Thomas Pepin, and let's talk about the NHL. So, in today's stream, we are going to do a different subject than I had originally planned. Um, on my most recent streams, I was saying how I would do. Um, so, I made it's a spreadsheet, but basically where um, sorry, one sec. Yeah, I made a spreadsheet where it tells me the likelihood of teams making the playoffs based on different points during the season. So at 35 games, 65 games, whatever, all those at 5 game increments. So I was going to go over the data I gathered, the results, but so the subject for today is just going over the remaining free agents that, well, I would argue in all likelihood are going to play, or at least a chunk of them. Um, and so the reason I'm doing this subject versus the other subject is this one's it's a more timely subject, or it has a shelf life, whereas the other one I could talk about whenever. So unless anything else comes up, which actually I have maybe some other things I wanted to talk about. So what I could turn out doing is postponing it, not for next week, but the next week after that. Because I have another topic I'm thinking about that, again, it's kind of relevant right now. So we'll see, but eventually it's something I'm going to talk about and share. There's no great urgency or anything to talk about it, so it can always be postponed. So today we're going to go over the main remaining free agents in the NHL. There's not many, and there are even less that are of great significance. A lot of these players, it's not like they're going to be game changers, but a chunk of them at least are still good enough to play, and it's a question of when as opposed to if they'll get NHL contracts. Just going to go over them and give my opinion on what they're probably going to get, and all that kind of stuff. So that's the plan. I just need to pull things up so I can share screen. So things should be good now. So as always, using cat friendly, which I forgot to put as the source in the description, but for one it's obvious, second I can do it later. So these are the current free agents, and they're in order by previous cap hit. So there's a bunch more, and they're not in order of the ones that I'm going to discuss. So I'm going to do it, although it would maybe make more sense for retention of viewers to do the better players later. I'm actually going to start with the better players. But all these people are relevant, and I'll just talk less about the players that are less relevant. So, hey, I just realized that I lined up the screen for sharing screen almost perfectly. It's kind of funny because I don't have a way to check, and I don't care enough to be super specific. But anyways, so, oh shoot. I need to use my list. Give me a sec. Oh, what I could do actually, instead of doing it this way, I can do it this way. So on the right hand side, you should see the list. So that's in the description of the current stream, and that's the order we'll talk about. So first, just regarding Kane, so Patrick Kane hasn't been signed yet. It's because they said just over a month from. So I spoke about this previously. I think it was from around September 20 something. And they said it would probably be about another month for him to fully recover. And then I estimated that probably another week or two. So, ballpark around now, Patrick Kane should probably be healthy and ready to go. And he wasn't going to sign with the team until he became healthy. So, it's either that he's healthy and negotiating, or not healthy quite yet and negotiating, or not healthy and not negotiating. But I mean, so those are all the options. But anyways, something's like he obviously hasn't signed, so there's something that we're waiting on. So he, of course, is clearly the most the best free agent out there, and he's obviously not going to fetch the same cap hit as what he was making previously. Now, what you could argue is he's worth pretty close. So last season, 57 points in 73 games. Yeah. So pretty good. Not as good as his past seasons. So like 92 points in 78 games. And not too long ago was 110 in 81. So obviously a really good player. If I had to take a guess of what he'll probably sign for, it'll depend on which team he plays for. So there aren't too many teams with cap space, which on that note, it's not a bad idea to keep that open. So I would doubt, because who was it? There was, well, I guess Wheeler is a good example. So he was nearly a point per game, which is basically the same kind of production as Kane. And he signed for under $1 million, if I remember correctly. So theoretically, any team with $1 million in cap space could sign him. Also, there's LTIR cap space, and teams could move players. There's a whole bunch of different ways that, essentially, what I'm getting at is any team could theoretically get Kane. What he would sign for, I don't know. So because we've seen the example of like Wheeler, and I think there was somebody else last season that did the same sort of thing, where you've got these guys that are like a point per game and they're signing for $1 million just to either win, or they're just giving a discount for whatever reason. But typically it's to play on a winning team, and because they've already made their big money. So yeah, he could play anywhere. Where he's going to play, I can't even guess. Like, there's rumors all the time, and I never really pay much attention to rumors because honestly, you don't know until he actually signs, and things can change, and so I don't even bother listening to rumors. So what I would say is, in all likelihood, he's going to want to play for a competitive team. There is the chance, because I believe he's from Buffalo. Yeah. So there is the chance that he wants to play for Buffalo because that's his hometown team. I don't know if that's who he cheered for. I think he might have said that, but I don't know for sure. So like, didn't he have like season tickets, or I don't know. I might be remembering wrong, but um, that's the one I would say wild card kind of option. He could go with Buffalo because that's his hometown, and then otherwise it's pretty much anybody. And like I said, since any team can kind of make the cap space if they need to, because you would for Kane, um, he could go anywhere. So there's not much more to say than that. And the same story, to be honest, is with every single player here. Um, and especially given that they haven't been signed yet, all of them could be under $1 million or $1 million exactly, or whatever, ballpark $1 million for their cap hit. So to talk about what they're worth, I don't know if it makes much sense. But maybe I'll just touch on it for each player, just give my estimation of what they're probably worth. On that note, Caden obviously could go anywhere, and he clearly will go somewhere, probably to a competitor for the cup. I would guess probably it feels like a U.S. team. I mean, I have no idea whatsoever, but I just wouldn't be surprised if it's an American team. He went over to New York, so, and I think he had a big, or he had a strong influence on that being the case. So, and if that was the case, then he's probably going to want to go to an American competitive team. So could be Boston. I kind of doubt Pittsburgh because they've been struggling. Where else? Tampa, I don't feel like they're going to be as good of a team. So if I had to take a guess, probably not Tampa, but you never know. I doubt New York because it didn't go super well there. I don't think 12 points in 19 games. That's kind of lower than his norm. Maybe LA, but I still doubt that. Dallas, I could very well see that because they could win a cup. Islanders, because of the structure of the team, probably not, but they're, I think, a decent team. Oilers, I just doubt Canada. Carolina, I wouldn't be surprised. Red Wings, maybe, but still unlikely because they're not. I don't think they're a team going for the cup, but they're going to be, I think, a decent team this season. So, anyways, so there's probably a handful of teams. Oh, Vegas, obviously, I forgot Vegas. So we'll see where he ends up, but those are kind of some options. And then if he was signed for what he's worth, I mean, he's probably worth, at this point in his career, if it was a 1 year, 2 year contract, how old is he? Yeah, if he wants to stay somewhere for a bit, well, it's at least $5 million, probably towards something like, he's probably worth 8 or so million. Probably will get signed for less. I wouldn't be surprised if it's in the sevens, something like that, but of course we'll see. So anyway, so just some thoughts on Kane there. Now, the other one, so there's an article I just saw basically a day ago. So Kessel says that he can still play and he's ready to go to a team. So what I found kind of annoying, but I guess, it's probably for some sort of good reason, is that he didn't get played all that much last season. What? It said he played 82. I thought he... Did he not get benched? Where is he here? Kessel. He played in 82 games? That doesn't make sense because wasn't he? Or is it the previous season he was scratched for? Because it broke his Ironman streak. Hold on, because I just saw it in the article too. So it was just in. I thought it was also during the regular season that he got benched, but it was during the playoffs for sure. Yeah, he only played in 4 games, and then they won the cup. I could have sworn though. Obviously, I'm wrong, but anyways, yeah, the fact that he was getting benched, and I mean, he's a pretty productive player. He's not. I don't think he's a. I mean, he's a -7 on a good team, which is pretty bad. Um, but what I was gonna say is that I don't think he's a liability. So, or he produces more than he gives up. I think. I don't know. I'd have to. I think you'd be able to see that in advanced analytics, but. Long story short, I think he's a valuable enough player that he should play with somebody. He's getting a bit older now, 36. So, I mean, he only probably has a year or two left where teams are going to sign him. The fact that he hasn't been signed at this point is kind of an indication that his career is going to be ending soon. And there's at least 3 players that recently retired that probably could have played. So it seems like as people are getting older, they're just not finding teams, and it probably has something to do with cap space and things like that. So for that reason, or those reasons, in all likelihood, he's not going to probably play too many seasons still. So last cap hit was 1.5 million. In all likelihood, he's probably going to get paid less than that. If I had to take a guess, I hope for his sake that he's not holding out for some contract better than that or equal to that. If you're going to want to play, you're going to have to settle for something. Maybe he wants to play on a team that's competitive. Maybe they don't have the spaces for him. There's a whole bunch of different things that could be going on. But he says he wants to play. He hasn't retired. In all likelihood, he is going to play. Just who with, I don't know. And market value, if he was to get signed for what he would be worth, I mean, wouldn't be dramatically over $1 million, maybe at most $2 million, but yeah, in all likelihood, he's going to sign for $1 million or less. So where he's going to go, again, pretty much everybody, no idea where. So yeah. We won't talk about him yet. Parise, another guy that you would think that he would be signed by now. God knows where he's going to go too. 34 points in 82 games, so still productive enough. He's a bit older, so 39, so he seems like he's still in good enough shape to play at least a year or two. I mean, 21 goals in 82 games is a, respectable amount. Same sort of story as Kessel. Who knows where he's going to go? Probably going to sign for under $1 million. Would theoretically be worth over that. But yeah, very clearly another guy that could play. And I think he's, pretty reliable. So, and played a full 82 games, so he's healthy enough. So, another guy just kind of puzzled as to why he's not signed. And it's like I said, so there's a handful of players that have retired and probably could have played. And so it seems like there's some sort of trend where they're I don't know why, again, it's that combination of maybe they're asking for too much, maybe they're too specific on the teams they want to play for, and they don't have the cap space or aren't interested in signing them, um, or signing them at the amount that they want to be signed for. There's so many different things, and just another guy that should be playing is Parise. Uh, where he's gonna go, who knows? If I had to take a guess, like, because the Islanders, I don't know why he didn't go back with the Islanders. Because it feels like he was a good fit there. Maybe they want to play these younger guys, but I don't think they're so stellar that they would be an improvement on him. So, I don't know. He should go back to the Islanders, in my opinion. But, yeah. So Parise, again, another guy, he should be signed, but he's not. I should say these are not necessarily in order of who I think are the best free agents out there, but just maybe most serviceable. I don't know. Maybe is a way to put it, or combined from performance and things like that. But anyways, so in this case, Halak, I just put him in there. I don't think he's necessarily the fourth best free agent out there, but he's still, I mean, a good enough goalie that he probably can play. Like, I mean, 9-0 something save percentage on the teams he's played for is perfectly respectable. Like, they're not stellar numbers, but I don't know why a team wouldn't go for him as a backup, or because maybe the problem with Halak is he wants a one-way contract, and teams are only offering two ways. Like, you never know. It could be something like that could be going on. But clearly, I think he's a good enough goalie to play in the NHL, at the very least on a bad team, just to fill a spot. But maybe he doesn't want to play on a bad team. Who knows? Because I wonder if I don't think he's won any cups. So maybe he wants to find a team that can compete for a cup. Who knows? So, yeah. But yeah, another guy here that, in my opinion, should have been signed by somebody, and he's still out there. I guess the one thing I should have said earlier, the whole purpose of this stream is just to name off some of the players that are still out there that at least had I not pulled up the list, I would have probably forgotten, and most of these guys should probably still be playing. So Halak's another one that should play for somebody. Played 25 games last season, so I don't see why not. Like, that's a chunk of games. Goals against average is good. Save percentage is good enough. So another guy that's still out there that could probably sign with somebody. And if a team went with the 3 goalie rotation strategy that I strongly believe in, he'd be perfect to fit in with a team. Super cheap. I'm sure he would sign for, what was he getting paid? 1.5. I don't think he would get that at his age, and the fact that he hasn't been signed. So it would probably be, again, $1 million or less. For that money to have a goalie like that as your insurance policy would be, I think, really smart. So, yeah, another guy that's still out there. An interesting one is Toews. So he hasn't retired, but he very well could. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen, because he's had issues with long COVID. Another guy that did was Brandon Sutter, I believe. And so he retired, Sutter, and because he attempted to come back. So I wouldn't be surprised if the same thing happened with Toews, but he played 53 games last season, 31 points, so still productive on a per game basis, more productive than his previous season. So he has life in him, that's for sure. Again, he's probably going to take some super cheap contract where he would play again. Who knows? Um, but he'd be like he'd be a better version of the next guy we're going to talk about, Eric Staal, where would be more productive, but would be a great fit on like a fourth line for super cheap on a competitive team. That's what I would predict is going to happen with him. Similar thing to like what Wheeler did. I don't know where Wheeler's playing in their lineup, but probably a cheap contract, go to some competitive team would be great because he could probably go up and down in the lineup and he wouldn't get pushed beyond his limits given his health issues and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised like the strategy for him is to take time off at the start of the season, give his body a lot of rest, and then maybe sign somewhere just before. Well, I don't know if there's requirements preventing people from signing after the trade deadline, but in any case, later in the season, he's probably going to sign with a team, competitive team. And even so, Parise could be the same story. It could be one of those that they're waiting to see which teams are good. And even Kane, theoretically, could wait longer to figure out who's trending in the right direction, sign with a good team, because then you're not signing with a garbage team and then you're stuck missing the playoffs. So I wouldn't be surprised if some chunk of these players are using that strategy in combination with the fact that they're probably having difficulties signing with teams because of just teams not having the space or not wanting to play them over somebody else that's maybe younger. But yeah, I would predict that the majority of them who are going to sign are probably waiting to see which teams are good. And like I said, balancing that with teams that are interested in them. So, but Toews is I think the best example of somebody who's probably going to wait to see how things play out before he signs with a team. So, yeah, so don't be surprised for that to take place. Now, otherwise, if he was a regular free agent, I think he's... Oh, I thought he was slightly older than that. So 35. I mean, he'd probably be worth something like, at the very least, 2 or 3 million. Something like that. But given the whole situation, he's probably... again, gonna make $1 million. I wouldn't be surprised of all the players for him to get something like $2 million or whatever, but of course we'll see. And then yeah, speaking of the guy, Eric Staal. Now, in my opinion, he's probably a complete coin flip of if he's gonna get signed or not. He barely made a team last season. So, but he turned out being a useful player and played well in his role. So, I mean, he could make a team, but I think it's completely in the air if he's going to. He clearly wants to because otherwise he would have retired by now. But, yeah, it's tough to say whether or not he'll play with a team. And again, another guy under $1 million, I'm sure, if he does get signed. So, but probably still has life in him, again on a fourth line role. And we'll see what happens. Now, we've got a few guys here that are still relatively young that aren't signed. So, Nick Ritchie, where are you here? So Nick Ritchie, 27. So the rest of these guys, I'm not going to bother pulling up their stuff. But Nick Ritchie, Puljujarvi, Ritchie, 27, Puljujarvi, 25. Who else is still young? I gotta see who's on the list still. Bear, I know is young. Yeah, 26. Brett Ritchie, I don't know how old he is. 30, still young enough. And then the rest of the guys Ryan Murray, 29. And then the rest of the guys are getting towards the older side. Still probably, again, the whole reason I'm speaking of them is because they're probably still serviceable players. Like Bailey, 33. Brassard's on the older side, I believe. Where is he here? 35. Edler's got to be towards 40. 37. Chiasson, I think he's still relatively young. Yeah, 32. So most of those guys, there's clearly should still have life in them to play. So Bailey was 25 points in 64 games. Puljujarvi, he didn't play that well, but 16 and 75. He was a first round pick, second overall or something? I think he was second overall. Oh, he dropped to fourth, sorry. He was set to be second overall behind Line, if I'm remembering right. And then what else is there? Like Ethan Bear, 16 points in 61 games as a defenseman. He's productive. Again, in some of these cases, I don't know if they're defensively a liability, but they're productive enough that they should be playing somewhere. At the very least, as so in the case of a defenseman, a seventh defenseman or even eighth defenseman that maybe comes up and down. Or otherwise, some of these guys at the very least like a 13th or 14th forward. So it's just surprising with some of them. Where else did we have? So we have Nick Ritchie, 26 points in 74 games, quite reasonable. Brett Ritchie, 13 points in 50 games, still decent. Edler, he would probably be borderline making an NHL team, but probably still good enough. 11 points in 64. Chiasson, that guy I've always been surprised about how, because he, on a per minutes basis, he's probably one of the most productive out there. So 12 minutes, 9 points in 20 games, and he's like this all the time. For me, I would love to have. I don't know exactly what his story is. Sorry, one sec. What his story is in terms of liability defensively, but I don't think he's that bad. He had 20 points in 29 games in the AHL before he got pulled up to the Red Wings. And I mean, I know he doesn't play many minutes and he's quite productive. So I don't get it. Again, I would have to watch these guys very closely to figure out exactly, if they're good enough to play or where exactly they should play and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so another guy I'm kind of surprised about. And then Murray, 3 points in 13 games, but 13 minutes. So for defenseman, that's on the lower side. Same with Edler, 14.46. Bear, see, that's a better example of a guy that it indicates that he probably should be playing 18.31. for defensemen shows that he can probably play. So, anyways, just another bunch of players. So from 7 all the way down to 15 on my list there in terms of the numbering you can see on the right or in the description. A bunch of guys that can probably still play. Now, there's other guys that maybe could be playing. So Clefbaum, I don't know his health situation, but I'm pretty sure it was a health issue of why he's not playing. Gardner, same story. I think Gardner, I think it was his back or something like that. Moore, I can't remember how productive he was. Like if he's got life in him yet. Not so productive, but not horrible either as a defenseman. Smith is, I don't know why he hasn't retired to this point, but he probably should. Maybe could play, but probably best as in the AHL. It would be very, very bubble to play in the NHL. Bellows maybe could get signed. Patrick, I don't know what his situation. I'm pretty sure he had health issues, but he's still young. 24. He missed last season. I don't know if it was concussion. Him. What was it from him? Puck to the head. So yeah, I think it was concussion or something like that. We all know the Pinto story. Cuckoo maybe could play. Simmons, I would say, is unlikely, but you never know. Elliott, unlikely. You never know. Pizik, you never know. Cates, you never know. Dell, you never know. Hutchinson. So there's a bunch of guys that could still, Walensky, could still play. Dzingel. Maybe some of these guys, like I was saying, they want one-way contracts and they're not getting it. Or the amount of money that they're asking for is too much. There's a whole bunch of different reasons why they're probably not signed, but yeah. So long story short, there's still a bunch of players that probably could play, even some decent players that could play, and where they're going to go, obviously we have no idea, but just wanted to essentially in this stream draw attention to the players that are still out there. Because, like, for example, if you have your team that you're cheering for, these are all guys that you could maybe, like, at the very least, in a depth role, you'd maybe want to have on your team. So, yeah, again, not a crazy, insightful or whatever sort of stream, more informational than anything. Just wanted to, like I said, draw attention to some players that are out there. And kind of the whole big picture of what I'm trying to talk about, besides the fact of showing who's available, is it's interesting just kind of the way things are trending when it comes to filling out rosters and signing free agents and stuff. Is it seems like all these teams are willing to spend a fortune on all these young guys and risk kind of gamble on if they're going to turn out being as good as they're expected to be. They'd rather do that than bring in guys that are kind of known commodities that would be productive. I would be the complete opposite. I would rather bring in, so for example, I'd rather bring in Staal, Brassard, and Bailey for like my fourth line, pay them all on around $1 million or under $1 million a piece, versus bring up some young guy that might be less responsible, things like that. Yeah, I know you got to develop people, but I the more that time goes on, the more I'm against developing players in the NHL when they're young. It's either you're productive and good or you're not. And I would rather know the kind of productivity I'm going to get out of players and have completely no idea. Maybe you could get surprised and you'd have some guy that um, comes out of nowhere and turns out being a point per game player. I mean, the thing is you can have that. You could bring a guy up. He does that for a stretch of games. You use up his contract year, and then he just stops producing. And then what? You're going to send him down to the AHL and eat up a year of his contract when you could have saved that, just played him in the AHL or left him in juniors or whatever the story is. And yeah, save it till you know that he's going to be a productive player. So, anyways, I just don't like a lot of the strategy, it seems, when it comes to roster composition, the contracts that they give. Um, a lot of it, I wouldn't do it the same way. I'd be doing a whole bunch of things differently. Clearly, I like a lot of this stuff I've communicated over time of the different things that I would do, but yeah, and these are some clear examples of players that I would much rather them on my team than some young guys that, again, you have no idea what you're going to get, and you can postpone their entry into the NHL for when they're really ready to go. I know sometimes with development, you want them to develop in the NHL. You need to have them at the pace to get them to the right spot, to have them become an NHL player and to actually turn out producing. But it's a fine balance between the two of using them up as an asset versus developing them in a certain way. It's a tough balance, but I would disagree with some of the strategies that these GMs use and stuff. Again, I'm not a GM, so take it for what it's worth, but that's just my opinion on that. So, anyways, on that note, we'll leave it there. Just some names to keep an eye out and see if they get signed. So yeah, if you like the stream, hit the like button, share with your friends, subscribe, turn on notifications. The channel homepage has upcoming streams on regular NHL content. Next one, of course, is the week recap that comes up at midnight Eastern tonight. And yeah, so my streams on Fridays, they run give me a sec. I don't even know my own schedule. I just show up, well, in this case, late again, sorry. Show up close to being on time from whatever I schedule. So next Friday, this same stream is 2:30 p.m. Eastern and then midnight Eastern for the weekly recap. For things I can't schedule ahead of time, like franchise mode, that schedule's in the About section of the channel. It runs Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Be it pros whenever I have time or feel like it. Always feel like it, never have time. And any comments, leave them in the comments. Suggestions, likewise. And we will see you guys later, midnight Eastern, to do a recap of the week. Cool, so thanks for tuning in if you did, and we'll see you then. Okay, bye.